One, two, three. Okay. Put these on so I get an idea of what we're doing. We have to make like it's evening, okay?
Okay, fine.
Good evening. You're listening to WHFS Bethesda, Maryland. My name's Thomas, and joining me tonight in the studio is Richie Furay. Welcome.
Hi, Thomas.
Welcome to Bethesda, Richie.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to be here.
And Richie's down playing at the Cellar Door. You were down there last night, and you'll be down there again tonight.
Right.
How do you like it?
It's very intimate, I'll tell you that. I've only been in the Cellar Door once before. It was to see JD about 4 or 5 years ago. And it's I feel a little inhibited in there because it is so small. I haven't really played in a place that small, but we had a real good time last night, and the crowd really seemed to enjoy us. So it's good.
Good. I'm glad you like it. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about because you're quite an innovator. I guess I could call you a pioneer of country rock. And you were there at the beginning, and you're still there.
Yeah, I'm still hanging in there.
78. You have a new album out on Asylum called Dance a Little Light, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about what went into making it.
Great, yeah. I think I got into some new musical ideas again. I'm trying to expand myself so that people just don't relate to me as country rock Richie. It was, something that I did pioneer back in the early or late 60s. And it was fun, but there's much more. I think there's other music within me, and I think I wanted to start doing that when I did leave Poco in 73. I wanted to expand myself and be able to let my creative energy just kind of flow. And with my new album, I've got into horns and string arrangements, of which a lot of people seem to be a little tentative about with me. I think they're more receptive to this album, quite a bit much more so than with my first solo effort. But with this album, I think it's a little more wide open and not quite as introspective as I've Got a Reason. But with the horns, it's like a brand new area for me. I've sort of introduced some rhythm and blues into my music, and that's the musical direction. I'm experimenting. I'm just trying to just open up my musical scope.
Well, that's the name of the game. When you're talking about horns, I flash back on Good Time Boy, a song that you wrote, and you didn't sing it, though.
No, I didn't sing it. Actually, the song was written about Dewey, and so he became the guy that sang it. And there's a strange story around that. I've never really been one to be so sensitive that I just walked right out of a studio. But during the recording of that song, I did not want to record it. I wanted to record a tune that later got recorded on a Poco album called Nobody's Fool, which seemed to flow into the same area of music at the time. But I was kind of pressured into recording Good Time Boy. It came out okay.
With the horns. I mean, you're talking about horns. And then later on, like in some of Stills' work, he incorporates the Memphis horns. And I mean, you can go back and see that.
Clear back there when I first took a little taste of it, of which I think the track came out real good. I think I was just more sensitive to Nobody's Fool than I was to Good Time Boy. But it was good. It gave Dewey a chance to sing a tune on an album. And
yeah, and get some exposure himself.
Really.
What's your favorite song on Dance a Little Light? What do you really like?
I think It's Your Love is my favorite tune. I mean, I have different feelings about each one of the tunes, but I think It's Your Love just conveys the whole attitude of the album. It incorporates the horns. It's an up tune, and it's just speaking about pretty much a general attitude of the album. It's your love that keeps me going, and although I actually wrote the song about my wife and my family, I think that when I see my audiences, I almost quit playing about 4 years ago.
Is that right?
And I had some things that I had to work out. And now when I get back playing and I see the audiences that are coming to see me, and just the response that they give me, I can relate the song to my audiences now. It's the chorus goes, "It's your love that keeps me going day by day. It's a growing," and I can feel that And it is your audiences. You know, when you have to leave home and you go out and you play night after night, hotel after hotel, if you didn't feel that warmth coming from your audiences, it would be really worthless to do. And I really feel a neat warmth coming from my audiences, and I really am. I love them for it. I mean,
mm-hmm. That song that you love, it has sort of a disco.
Yeah, it does, and I never really realized it. I'm not really into the disco sound. Virgil, who is not with me anymore, actually came to me with the chord structure and sort of the rhythm feel for the tune. So the rhythm feel wasn't necessarily mine. The melody and the lyrics are my contribution to the tune, which I like doing that because, like, I probably wouldn't sit down and write that kind of a feel to a song. So it's kind of like a challenge to me to work with somebody else's feels. I didn't really think of it as a disco tune, but some people do, and I guess because it has that chinka chicka chink chink and the hi-hat going.
Yeah, that's how it struck me when I first heard it. Well, let's listen to it and something else off of the album, and then we'll come back and talk some more.
Fantastic.
Okay, so that's our break, and then we come back. Okay, this is WHFS Bethesda, Maryland, and those are a couple of selections from Richie Furay's new album, Dance a Little Light. And we're speaking with Richie if you just tuned in. You have, as we said, quite a track record as a performer. We should mention that the first band that I guess brought you to national prominence was Buffalo Springfield, and for what it's worth was quite a commercial hit for you, I guess, when you were young.
Springfield's biggest success as far as a hit single.
And how did the Buffalo Springfield get started? Could you tell us?
Well, each one of it, well, I'm speaking now of Stephen and Neil and myself, had met each other at different periods of our career in like about the same year. I met Neil in New York, who had met Stephen and a little faction of a group that I was involved with called the Go-Go Singers, of which Stephen was also a part of. It was like the New Christie Minstrel Serendipity singer type thing, and our home club was the Cafe A-Go-Go in New York City, so we were called the Go-Go Singers. When that group broke up, Stephen took part of the band and did a tour of Canada where he met Neil. And so when they toured up there, I said, well, come on down to New York and see us sometime. Well, I was still living in New York, so Neil came down, and I met him then, and he taught me a couple of his tunes and went on his way. Several months later, after just hanging out in New York doing the hoot nights at the Bitter End and whatever, I decided, well, I'm going to write a letter to Stephen and see what he's doing. So I wrote him a letter in California, and he said, yeah, come on out. I got a group. All I need is you to come out and help me sing, and we'll put a band together. I've got a band. When I got out there, he didn't have a band. It was just me and him. And so that was kind of strange. But we sat around, and I taught him a few tunes. He taught me a few tunes, and one of the tunes I taught him was Nowadays Clancy Can't Even Sing. And we were on our way down Sunset Boulevard somewhere. This is the story that's been written, and it is a true story. We were on our way down Sunset, and this black hearse with Ontario license plates pulled up beside us and went on in front of us so we could see the license plate, and caught a glimpse of this guy driving, and I knew that I knew the guy. And so we pulled up beside him, and Steve and I both just looked over, and there was Neil sitting behind the driver's seat of this hearse, man, just driving away. And we all looked at each other and said, hey, yeah, and pulled off to a side street. And we started talking, and I told him that I taught Stephen Clancy, and he should come over and, hear our arrangement of it. And he loved it, so he said, wow, this is it, man, we got to have our band. So we started. That's basically how it got started. He had Bruce with him at the time.
Bruce Palmer?
Yeah, Bruce Palmer was with him at the time. And so the four of us just kind of played together with another drummer named Billy Mundy, and who went on to play with the Mothers, and with a group called Maston and Brewer, which later became Brewer and Brewer, and then which became Shipley and Brewer. Mm-hmm. And after he left, because the guy that was managing us thought that Tom and Mike were ready to go before we were, we didn't have a drummer, so we got a hold of Dewey. I forget quite how we did get a hold of him, but I remember his comment was, I'll be in the band if I can sing some tunes. He said, I sing like Otis Redding and Wilson Pickett, but the only way I'm going to be in the band is if I come and can sing.
Did you ever think that Buffalo Springfield would catch on like it did when you were starting
I knew it was
out?
good music. While we were in it, and I guess shortly after it broke up, people said, well, you just were ahead of your time, of which was so hard for me to realize, understand, grasp a hold of, because that was the only thing we knew. We came out of different areas of music, but basically it was more or less a folk type thing, and we just put the electric guitars to the folk. I think probably the first album was maybe more of that than any of the later albums, but we just put harmonies. I mean, we loved the Beatles, so and the Byrds, so we got harmonies and electric guitars, and it was just that was our music. It wasn't before, after, or whatever. It was just what we were doing, at the time, and I knew it was good.
Oh, definitely.
And it was just really fun. It was something you could never planned. I just look back on my musical career. I've been playing for 12, 13 years now, and none of it could I plan, and none of it would I change. It's like life, basically. It's had its good moments and its bad moments, not bad moments, but just a little more difficult to get into, and I wouldn't change it all. I'd do it the same. You're right now.
That answers a question that I was going to ask you later. If you could do it all over again, would you want to be a musician?
I absolutely would. I mean, because I didn't plan it. When I took off to go to New York to be a folk singer, I thought, well, shoot, man, I'll hang out in the summer and play in the little folk clubs back in New York. And I never really planned that I was going to be a musician. I knew I loved music and I wanted to play. And when my two buddies that I went to New York with went back to college, I stayed on and have stayed on ever since.
On the first Buffalo Springfield album, I don't believe you wrote anything, but on the second one, your material started to show up. I'm thinking of Sad Memory.
Right.
And
Child's Claim to Fame.
Child's Claim to Fame, right. And something else you wrote with Neil Young. It's so hard to wait.
Yeah, that was on the Last Time Around album.
All terrific songs.
Thank you.
And I'm sure like Buffalo Springfield will go down in the archives of rock and roll music, because you were that psychedelic country and, well, just everything rolled into one.
We were definitely pioneers. I think, the Springfield was one of the first groups to do the expanded instrumental solos. I know on Last Time Around that we were the first to really bring the steel guitar onto a pop rock and roll album. Gosh, it was just neat. I mean, I'm real happy to have been a part of it and to have played with, those people, Stephen and Neil and Bruce and Dewey.
All 11,000 guitars.
Yeah, really.
Which reminds me again, like Buffalo Springfield again, the wizardry of production was there. I mean, you produced a few tracks, and I'm not sure if this is rumor or not, but did the Stones help produce that? Produce some of it?
No, they really didn't. That must have been a rumor, at least to my knowledge. I never.
Okay, when they thank, like I'm going to edit a lot of this. I'm just finding this out for my own curiosity. Yeah. You thank Brian, and I wondered if that was Brian Jones.
You mean on the credit thing?
Yeah, let me see which one it is. I underlined it here somewhere. There it is. Brian with a little help from his friends. I didn't know if that was Charlie Watts or Charlie Chin.
No, see, what they were getting at was Charlie Green and Brian Stone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Green and Stone were our managers at the time. So that's who Charlie and Brian are.
Okay, I found that out.
There you go.
Okay, well, let's listen to something
great
from Buffalo Springfield, songs that Richie authored, and then we'll come back and talk some more. Okay, that's break two. We got a lot of information in there. Good. Okay, we're back, and we're speaking with Richie Furay, who is down at the Cellar Door tonight with a brand new band. We should talk about your band.
Great.
It's a new group that you just put together.
It's a brand new group, yeah. Everybody that played on my Dance a Little Light album, which is the brand new album, is in the band with the exception of Virgil Beckham, and I have a new lead guitar player, Charles Cruz. And this band, Thomas, is, well, let's put it this way. We've been together a little over a month, and in that time, I really feel the original magic that really spurs you on. It reminds me of the original magic that Poco had when we first started playing together. It's something that you can't explain. It's something that you can't write down like names on paper, like, say, SHF, which looked great on paper, you know. But the new band, it just contains that kind of magic that I just feel is going to be the band to really build my new foundation on, something to work with and go with.
You, I guess, could be classified as a nomadic musician. I mean, with Buffalo Springfield, Poco, and Souther, Hillman, and Furay, they were all short-lived groups that you were in. And I should mention that I picked up the Post today, and I read the little review that someone wrote, and they said that you had an identity crisis because of the material that you were playing was old material, and I think we should straighten that out.
Well, I think maybe, you know, that people don't take into consideration what it takes to put a new band together, number one. My band has only been together for, like I said, a little over a month. It's not like going into the studio when you work out a new album. You can sit and rehearse the album, and you prepare for an album where you go in and you can take after take after take until you get just what you want on the tape. When you go out to play live, you have to prepare to play before a live audience. You get one shot through. It takes a lot of time to get everyone to learn their parts. You have to learn and play to sing and play together. It's not like we'll go in and overdub the vocals. You have to do it right now. So basically, I think people should understand that it does take involvement, especially when the music is intricate. It may not seem intricate, but there's a lot of vocals involved in my music, and there's a lot of instrumental. And we had to work on a foundation set. Now, when I first started with my solo career, let's say after SHF, I decided that I wasn't going to play any of the old songs. And I found that the places where we were going, that the people that came were supporting me who were supporting me now remembered my past, and they came to pick up on a little bit of that.
Sure, nostalgia.
And I'm proud of those songs. I mean, it's not like I'm going to turn my nose up at them and say, well, listen, this is me today, and you have to just hear this. I'm proud of what I'm doing right now, but I feel like a lot of people know who Poco is. They know who the Buffalo Springfield is, but they don't know who Richie Furay is. So when I can identify me with songs like Falling in Love off of SHF or Settling Down in Poco, and open my set with maybe a tune like that, and then I go in and play 4 or 5 tunes. We did only play in the set that, I think the particular set that you're talking about that was reviewed, we did only play 3 tunes from the new album, but there's also only a 45-minute to 50-minute time limit that we can play, and I've worked out a medley for my old fans, and it covers from Sad Memory in the Buffalo Springfield through Good Feeling to Know. Now, some of the tunes aren't even tunes that I wrote, like You Better Think Twice and Bad Weather, which I really feel are as much Poco as my tunes are, and I feel like that the audience deserves to hear that. Now, after this band's been together for a year, you know, we've played together live, a lot of the old stuff will start, you know, filtering out, and the new stuff will come in, but we do need a foundation set to build on, and you just can't learn 2.5 hours of music in 2 weeks, you know, and I just...
I can dig what you're saying. I'm sure people still yell out for Kind Woman.
Yep, they do.
And you're expressing like a lot of enthusiasm. You seem to be happy with your band, and that's all that's important.
I love my band. They're very supportive of me, and in turn, I'm supportive of them. I love them, and I think this band is, like I said, it's just got that magic that I really feel is the one to go with.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me want to play for the first time in a while.
There it is. You just said it. I remember 1969, turning on the Joey Bishop show, and there was Poco, okay? That was their first gig, I guess, on television. And I said, well, there he is. He's out of the Buffalo Springfield had disbanded, right? What was the reason that they broke up?
That the Springfield broke up?
Yeah.
We just couldn't get a firm grip on anything. We didn't have very good direction, I think. And I think Stephen and Neil knew what they wanted, and they were going to go after it at any cost. And it was hard to just get a cohesive effort going. Bruce kept getting deported because he didn't have working papers in the country. 3 of the Springfield were Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made it difficult. In a 2-year period, we were the tightest in like the first 6 weeks, 6 months that we were together. 'Cause after that, Bruce started going, and we had to bring in different bass players, and they would come and go. And then Neil, always in the back of his mind, wanted to be a solo artist. And now this is just my observation, but I felt that he would leave and want to attempt it, and then he would chicken out, and so he would come back to the security. So it was like, well, now are we going to have Neil, or are we going to have a new guy? And each time we get a new guy, Neil would come back, and we have to tell the new guy, see you later, and then he would go off again. And basically, that's where Child's Claim to Fame came from. I just got sort of disappointed in all the... one day I'm in, one day I'm out, one day he's in, one day he's out, and back and forth, back and forth. We couldn't get it going. And then finally, after the first album, which I feel was really the only total group effort, with the second and third albums, they really started to get into individual efforts, and it was just difficult. We just couldn't. Excuse me. It was kind of like we couldn't all get together at the same place at the same time.
Right. Towards the end, you picked up Jim Messina.
Right. Jimmy was our engineer. He had engineered, I think, a few things on the Again album,
mm-hmm.
and produced, is mainly responsible for probably last time around actually getting on plastic and getting out to, just on record. If it hadn't have been for him really taking the initiative to go ahead and finish it, I suppose it would have gotten finished, but it would have taken a lot longer. Jimmy was really charged up about doing it.
That's what I was saying earlier. The wizardry and the production of Buffalo Springfield Again was something to just remark about, that you did some production, Steven did production, and you guys were young back then. I mean,
yeah.
You just don't see that today.
No, you don't. It was pretty much in production. We each sort of had a general idea of how we wanted the interpretation of the song to be. As far as my technical knowledge behind a board and engineering, it's not that. I mean, you definitely need that it's a specialized field these days. And but production-wise, I pretty much today still, even though I don't take producers' credit, have pretty much control over what's going on. And how that's why it really sort of gets me sometimes when the producer will sometimes take a lot of flack for what the record sounds like, well, gosh, they're putting too many strings on this, but it's my experimenting, and it's my ideas, because I am the one that really has the final say. If I like this, if I like that, if I don't want horns on a record, or if I don't want strings on a record, I'm the one that says it. And my contribution, I have to work hand in hand with the producer. It's why I really am glad that I got Jim Mason to produce my new album. He worked on 2 Poco albums, Good Feeling to Know and Crazy Eyes. And when I went into the studio for Dance a Little Light, I wanted someone that I could relate to and I knew would relate to me, that I wouldn't have to go through any new changes with new people, because I'm just really tired of that. I'm tired of shifting around, and will probably take on the responsibility again myself of production eventually. Right now, I still like to bounce off some, because I am going through periods in my music where I want to experiment, and I don't want to get too far away from it. But again, I don't want to be just confined to well, this is what I think you are, so this is what we want this to be. And I'll say, no, this is not what I am, and I want to try this. And I think with Dance a Little Light, it really worked, and it worked in such a way that it's wide open. And I think the album has a lot of room for more people to grab onto.
Yeah, well, what you're saying and the way that you go about making a record makes you dynamic in a sense that you know what's going on and all the different facets of
When
of
I write a
making
song,
record.
I definitely, when I'm just sitting playing it on my acoustic guitar, I know pretty much in my mind what it's going to sound like when it's got bass, drums, keyboards, where the guitar fills are going to be, whether I'm going to sweeten it with horns or strings or whatever. I can, as I'm writing it, I can hear, yeah, right there's a good place for the harmony, and I'll even go back on my 4-track and I'll lay down a few harmony ideas, or I can hear, yeah, this is where keyboards, will come in and take over the instrumental track, and it's exciting.
It sounds like it. You were telling me earlier that a few years back you were ready to throw in the towel.
Right.
And just give up. Why?
Well, I think pretty much most of that is poured out on I've Got a Reason. When SHF started, I was just about ready to go through some very intense personal hassles. I had let music actually come in and just control my entire life. I'd gotten crazy, I guess, over the fact that Poco never really attained the success that I thought was deserved. I thought, maybe I was probably being selfish and confused, and I was looking for the greener pastures on the other side. And in the meantime, I let what was the most important thing in my life slide, and that was my family. I've been married for 11 years now and have 3 little girls, and it's also the period where I became a Christian and opened my life up to just other ideas that music isn't my life. And on I've Got a Reason, I kind of shared that. It's a very introspective album, and I kind of shared that period of my life. And I made a decision right then that if it was going to be music or my family, that my family was more important to me than any music that I could ever do. And I'm thankful that my family is together now, and that my wife and I have together now, rather than just me, sorted it out, and there's room where I can still have the gift of music that I have, that the Lord has given me, and I can go out and share that gift with other people, and still my family can be supportive. I think I just got a little bit too crazed with the whole success thing. If that comes, it'll be fine and good, but I'm just not going to let music control my life anymore. It's a very big part of it, but I really found out in that 4-year period a few years ago that my family means much more to me than the music. I'm just real thankful that I can have both.
The family that plays together stays
That's
together,
right.
Richie, let me ask you about, I'm going to edit that. Let's play something from your first solo album.
Great.
And come back and talk some more. Okay, we're back. This is WHFS Bethesda, Maryland, and my guest this evening is Richie Furay, who is in town down at the Cellar Door. Got to keep mentioning that.
Yes, sir.
There was an album called Stampede by the Buffalo Springfield, which had Nobody's Fool on it, and some live recordings that you guys did at a high school.
Yeah, I guess.
You want to tell us a story about that, why it wasn't released, and why Down to the Wire? And I think that was the only thing that came out on Hurricane.
Yeah, I'm really not sure. The cover was taken, Stampede cover was taken to be our original second album cover.
Those are the cuts that are on it.
Okay. And during this period, let me see, all these tunes were recorded, and I can't say, I guess Neil and Steven were more or less in charge of the songs that they wrote that would be on the second album, and I guess they didn't feel that the ones that they recorded that are on the Stampede album were what they wanted to represent at the time. That's the only thing I can say. So somebody then got a hold of these tapes and got a hold of, I guess, the live concert that we did at some high school, and also got a hold of that album slick that was never used. So basically what it was a concert that we did back in, '67, I guess.
The early days.
And then someone also got a hold of the Stampede album cover, which was supposed to be our album cover. And I'm trying to think if there were on that album cover, there's a guy with just sitting down with a hat over his face, and I think the reason that we didn't use that, I can't remember now whether Neil's picture was on that or not, and that might have been the reason for not using the Stampede. One of the guys, it was Bruce. It was Bruce that wasn't on it. And then I think we got to using more tunes that Bruce had participated. Well, he participated on all of these, but when he finally came back into the band after maybe being deported and brought back, we decided to go with another album cover.
Richie, let me ask you, what happened to Bruce Palmer?
He, as far as I know, is in Toronto right now. He's either in Toronto or someone that I just saw, we just played in Toronto, I think said he's up there. I haven't seen Bruce since SHF when we played since 1974 when we played at Santa Monica Civic, and I'm embarrassed to say that when I did see him, I didn't even recognize him. He's gained, when I knew Bruce, he was thin. I mean, he was very thin, and he is probably over 200 pounds, or was, and I really didn't recognize him. I hadn't seen him in many years, and I was flabbergasted.
I'll bet. I remember Dewey Martin did one solo album for Uni,
right.
Medicine Ball, and then we never heard from him again.
Yeah, Dewey's still kicking around, too. It's a shame, because I really feel that Dewey, out of everybody, is still trying to relive that past. And he, I think, is, even to this day, living for the Buffalo Springfield to get back together, and it's just not going to happen.
That's a fantasy that I have. If it ever would happen, could it ever happen?
I think not, and I think not because your memory is preserved on the 3 records, I guess 6 now with all the best ofs and the anthologies, but we only recorded 3 albums, and I think the memory that you have of the Buffalo Springfield from those records is more important than us trying to get back together and trying to recreate a magic that we couldn't. It's like you couldn't plan it. You know, you can't plan that kind of magic. It's special, and it's preserved on those records, and it couldn't happen to the same degree, and you'd be disappointed, guaranteed.
You sound like Ringo when he was asked about the Beatles reunion. He more or less said the same thing. It's over.
Agree. I haven't heard that, but I do agree. I mean, the Beatles hold a special place in your heart, in your mind, and it's like the Byrds when they got back.
Right.
And everybody was trying to be so nice to each other that I think they couldn't really get the creative energies to come out and really make that album as special as those Byrd albums that we remember. You know, those first maybe 3 or 4 albums that really contained that original magic, you know, when Gene was in the band, and I want to remember the Byrds like that. I'm hearing Gene and Roger sing right now. We just did a concert with them up in New Hampshire. Boy, man, that's a sound. I love that, right, yeah.
Well, I can remember the rumor before that album came out that there was supposed to be a double set Buffalo Springfield reunion and Byrds reunion, but I'm sure that was just hearsay.
I really think it's best that it doesn't happen, and would not want to do it. If I was asked, I would say I would rather not do it.
Yeah. I saw you in 1970, I think it was, with Poco playing, and something that sticks out in my mind, you did Kind Woman, and you did a few Buffalo Springfield songs, and you said, this group is not the Buffalo Springfield. You said that about 3 times. Do you remember? You played AU at an amphitheater.
I remember doing that. I remember playing it.
I saw you there, and you kept saying that, and this was when Poco was just getting off the ground.
Yeah, I was probably insecure about the fact that it is a brand new band, and people, you know, always think of your like the Springfield was hot in everybody's mind right then, and we'd broken up, and I was probably just trying to establish the fact that this was new.
It was a terrific show, though.
I remember the show as being really neat and a lot of fun.
Yeah, and another time, let's see, I think it was in 76, you were scheduled to play here, and you didn't show up. You remember that?
Well, in 76, I had left the band. I'd been out of the band for 2 years. So I don't remember that at all.
Okay, well, that's cool. Let me think of something else. We're gonna edit all
All
this.
right, good. Yeah,
I got a lot of good stuff.
Really,
man.
this is great. I'm enjoying it. I hope you
it's
are.
It's easier to do it this way.
Yeah.
For me. Okay, that's Richie Furay from his new album Dance a Little Light. Richie, you remade the Drifters This Magic Moment.
Right.
Why?
Well, it was basically a suggestion of my manager's. He said, why don't you go back and just see if you can find a tune that you really like that's an old one, and maybe do a new version of it. I went back and looked and looked and looked and looked. We ended up actually cutting 3 tunes. This Magic Moment being one of them. I wanted to do a tune also that someone hadn't covered 19,000 times. I wanted to do My Girl, and I wanted to do it in a slow shuffle. I got sunshine. But I looked at the list on that tune, and everyone from Otis Redding to the Rolling Stones to Glenn Campbell to who knows who. I mean, that's great for the song, but I wanted a tune that no one had really covered, and I found This Magic Moment, which I remembered and I loved. And there's also a comment in the newspaper about that tune, about how the original R&B version of it, I didn't reflect any of that, and it seemed, but then it seemed like a contradiction, and it was just a cover. Well, it's my interpretation. I didn't want to do it exactly like the Drifters did it, and I think I did give my original interpretation of it, and I like it, or I wouldn't have put it on the album. I wouldn't have let it go out, and as it turns out, that's going to be our first single from this album.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Looking for that. I also like Your Friends on the album.
Now, Your Friends it's another old tune, and it really has some special meaning to me because Poco recorded that for the Crazy Eyes sessions, and it never got released. And Jim Mason was involved with the Crazy Eyes album. He didn't get written credit for co-production, but he was around for almost the whole album. And when I called Jim, it just seemed like we should bring that song up and think about it again, because it would sort of draw us all together again, I mean, me and him from Crazy Eyes to Dance a Little Light, and here was this little common tune back here, I mean, our common bond, that we could just get it back together. So I mentioned it to him. I said, what do you think about doing Your Friends again? And he had just totally forgotten about the whole tune, which I had too. A friend of mine who has, he'll get tapes when we record stuff, brought it over and said, actually, you should, think about this tune again, because I like it, and you're going to use Jim. And he knew Jim worked on that album, so he said, why don't you listen to this tune? And I put it on. I said, yeah, we could probably do another version of that. So we recorded it, and I really liked it. That was easy to record, and it was fun.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about, This Magic Moment, I mean, oldies, for example, and I wanted to ask you, what songs really influenced your career? I mean, what did you listen to when
I think
you were
in
young?
different stages, different artists. I know when I was a kid, I think I really got most of my country influence. I mean, when I was growing up from being very young, like, from 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I think that's where I really listened to, like, Hank Williams and the country-ish type music. As I got a little bit older, New York street music is what took over, and I think that's where a lot of harmony stuff started to come into me. I really liked, again, it was more commercial type music though, like Dion and the Belmonts, the Dovells, those type of
doo-wops.
Yeah, the doo-wops. And I loved that kind of music. I remember when I first went to New York with my band, we would go down in the subway, which was the greatest echo chamber in the world, and we would sing all those old tunes just to hear the reverberation coming back. It was really fantastic. As I got into college, folk music, which was the craze, was what I started to get into.
Hootenannies.
And again, it was the more commercial stuff, though. It was the Peter, Paul, and Marys and the Kingston Trios and that type of music. It wasn't your Phil Oaks and those people. But I got to New York too late. Folk music was over when I actually got there, and I was really disappointed.
Where are you from, Richie? Where'd you
I'm
grow
from
up?
Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Uh-huh.
I live in Boulder, Colorado now.
I bet the air is nice out
Oh,
there.
I love it.
No pollution.
Although Denver is funky. Denver is rated one of the top polluted cities in the country.
Oh, it's filling
It's
up with
terrible,
people, yeah.
but where I live, it's definitely not that at all. It's really neat.
Yeah. We're talking with Richie Furay. If you just tuned in, this is WHFS Bethesda, Maryland. And Richie, I like to say, when Poco first started out, I remember you used Randy Meisner on the album, who eventually became a member of the Eagles. He was with Rick Nelson, I know,
Right.
in the late 60s. Saw him play with him. But you saw all this evolve. You saw the country rock thing take off, Jackson Browne and the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you've been doing for years. And I just wanted to know what you thought about it.
Well, the only statement I can say is that back when I started it in 1969, because I was one of the founders, I feel like I was really one of the founding fathers of that music, or style of music, which has grown to be probably some of America's really top music right now. I'm glad that it all wasn't futile, and I wasn't completely off the wall with what I was doing, bringing steel guitars and country type influences into music. I do remember when Poco got started and we released our first album in 1969 that it was real hard for us to get music played on the radio. We were told we were too country for the rock stations and too rock for the country stations. So there we were, caught between a rock and a hard place. I think that's what really inspired us to go on and make Poco maybe a little more rock and roll than country. But I'm just glad to know that it has gone on to be a successful form of music, and it's neat.
There are even radio stations these days that just play that kind of music.
Yeah, I guess.
So it's affected the format of radio a bit. Okay, well, let's listen to some Poco, some
Great.
early Poco,
All right.
and then come back and talk some more. Okay, we're back. Richie, I was listening to two of Poco's live albums, the one with you and then the one without you. And I can say in all sincerity, your voice is missed. It's a different group without your vocal range.
Yeah, I guess so. Although I think that when they did carry on, I was glad to see that the band didn't break up any sooner than it has. It has broken up now, but I really feel that it gave Rusty an opportunity to, I guess, develop his writing. It gave Tim a chance to step out. And I think in actuality what happened, though, Paul became the real forefront because he was the most prominent writer.
Paul Cotton.
Yeah.
He fronted his own group.
Yeah, the Speed Press.
Right.
Illinois Speed Press.
Right.
And I think it turned around and developed into another sound of its own, although it was still Poco.
Well, when you look back at it and you reflect on what happened, like Jim Messina left first and formed Loggins and Messina.
Right.
And then a year or so later you left. And the reason for that, you wanted to, experiment more?
Well, I wanted to experiment more, but I think what I said a little bit earlier, I think I also got the crazies a little bit behind the business end of the music, and I really felt after Good Feeling to Know that Poco was just not going to attain any other success than what it was. We were spending just so much time on the road. It was just driving us, really just nuts. When you live on the road for 9 months out of the year, and the other 3 months that are left, you record and you take a little vacation or whatever, it just became real crazy, and I was looking for something maybe just a little bit easier. I was always wanting Poco to be able to headline their own shows always and have the best sound system and the best lights, because I really feel we could have shown, and we just weren't, the economics involved, it wasn't feasible. And I was just really disappointed. I thought maybe Good Feeling to Know was going to put us into that category, where we could have headlined our own shows, and it never happened. And I think I just got disillusioned and disheartened, and was looking for those greener pastures, and it's never greener on the other side. I'm really glad that I do have a solo career of my own now, but but I wouldn't trade any moment that I had with Poco for anything.
Well, I think over the years, your voice has its own trademark. I mean, you can tell just by listening to the Springfield or Poco or even your latest albums. What about Souther, Hillman, and Furay? That was short-lived also.
I think it was ill-timed. Again, when I left Poco, I had originally I wanted to start my solo career. And at the suggestion of David Geffen, whom I have to really thank for probably Poco's from their second album on, he's the one that got us really able to finish up our second album and to continue on. But at his suggestion, I decided to go ahead and try the trio with Chris and JD. It happened at a time when I was just ready to go through those pretty intense personal problems, and I couldn't quite give myself totally to the band. I think JD had to adjust to a group situation, of which I feel he should be a solo artist. He should be in total control of his own group. I also, had left, even though it was my choice, a secure situation with Poco. I knew that there would always be that rent money and the food money and everything. And when I left, I think I had to adjust to some of that. I couldn't fall back on anything. So I think I had my little things to adjust to. But I think the main thing was the personal things. I just had to straighten out my family and the musical part of my life.
Well, you had a lot of success with SHF, Fallen in Love, as you said. Let's listen to Believe Me, a song that you wrote.
Great.
And then we'll come back and talk some more. Okay, we're back, and we're speaking with Richie Furay. Another song that you wrote with Souther, Hillman, and Furay was On the Line. I like that one a lot.
Thank you.
Anything you want to tell us about that?
Well, I wrote that about when my wife and I were separated, and it was a period when I was really trusting in the Lord for bringing my family back together. And she had become a Christian several months before me. And when the Lord actually pulled the carpet out from under my family, it was a thing where I was really looking for the gold records, and I was still striving more or less. And he had to get me aside and sort of get my perspectives right. And at the same time, I thought, she was doing this, that we had separated and it was her that was doing it, and it really wasn't. And so I wrote this song about her, whom I love, dearly, and I just couldn't believe that she wasn't realizing that it wasn't her in control, but it was someone else in control of our lives.
That's interesting. Let me see. This is a break. Think of something else to ask you. Oh, it was just in my head. Timothy Schmidt. He's an Eagle now.
He sure is. Followed Randy into Eagles.
Right.
Followed Randy into Poco.
It's all a cycle, or a circle cycle that we go through. So after Souther, Hillman, and Furay, after that band disbanded, and we should mention I used to see you on TV in that group too, Midnight Special or something.
Right.
You did a few.
Right.
You did a couple of those. After Souther, Hillman, and Furay disbanded, what gave you the idea to go on your own?
Well, I think it was just the next natural progression. Like I said, when I left Poco before SHF, I really wanted to do my solo career. I had been asked several times yearly, if I wanted to come back and join Poco again, and no, I didn't. I think if there was any group that I feel could retain some sort of magic that was originally there when a group got started, it would have been Poco, and it would have been fun, I think, to do a reunion tour of Poco. And I did see the guys and played with them on a couple occasions last summer, and it was sort of, talked about. Excuse me, but it didn't happen, and probably won't now that Tim has going on into Eagles. But it was just the natural progression for me to go ahead and start my solo career at that point.
So you've been through a lot of changes, Richie.
Yeah, I have.
Over the years. What kind of music do you like today in 1978?
I'm really getting involved in just, a whole wide spectrum, but I don't like to listen to a lot of music. I mean, I don't like to listen to records over and over and over again. Very few records will I sit down to and just really, they grab me so much that I just listen to all the time. It's because I spend so much time on the road, in the studio, and rehearsing and writing myself. And when I am home, I just like to really spend it with my family and do other things, just kind of unwind a little bit.
Relax.
Yeah. But I'm not really specifically into any certain one kind.
Yeah, you told me you're not too fond of disco.
Not really. I mean, I
don't blame you.
Yeah. I do love the Bee Gees, though. I really do.
Didn't they go through a change? From the mining disaster to disco fever.
Yeah. I love the Bee Gees. I mean, I always have. Every little phase that they've gone through, I've really, I still like, and they're probably the disco dukes now.
Isn't that the truth? But music has changed. I mean, I can relate to that from being in radio. I've been here 6 years and just seen the change come down. And it's weird, man. But I just wondered if there was any specific group that you listen to that maybe we could keep an ear open for, or something that you like. Any writers that you've been hanging out with?
Not recently. A couple guys that released an album, they've got 2 albums out last year that I really, really like were Fool's Gold, Denny and Tom.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that their album was a great album, their last one. There's a tune on there called Where Did Our Love Go Wrong, which I thought was just a great tune. I really like them. I think they matured a lot in their writing from their first album, which I really like too, but I like them a lot. Trying to think.
Have you heard The Last Waltz, the album that Neil did with the band?
I haven't heard that. Haven't heard that yet.
It's a great version of Helpless.
It's what I understand, which I think is a real good tune of Neil's.
Yeah, with Joni Mitchell and the band. But
I'll have to get that.
Yeah, we'll see if we can let you listen to some of it before you split.
Great,
so
okay.
You know what that's about. But a lot of good stuff's come out. Well, the first few months of this year. But that in particular stands out. Do you ever play with Steven or Neil? Or
No. And I know when they were doing their Stills Young Band album, there was a blip in somewhere where, and we don't need guys like Richie or David or Graham or whatever, and so I doubt that I will ever play with them. I don't know. It was nice seeing Steven at a concert a few months ago. We talked for a while, and it was nice.
Sure, you guys.
I've jammed over at his house within the last couple years, we just played around. I think it's nicer just to be friends with him right now.
Well, Richie, we want to wish you a lot of success.
Thank you, Thomas.
With the new album, and I'm sure you will have it. I'd like to end things up with Stand Your Guard.
Great.
A song that I like. It's a long one.
Yeah, it is.
And it starts out a cappella. And anything you'd like to say about it?
Well, my original intention for the middle section of that was to gather all my lead guitar players that I've ever played with, from Steven and Neil, Jimmy, Paul, Rusty, Al Perkins, just gather them all together and do that center section. Neil was on a boat someplace. Steven was touring when I was recording it. Paul decided I couldn't be in the studio when he wanted to come in and do it, and decided that, well, since I wasn't going to be there, he wasn't going to come in and do it. But Rusty came in, and Al Perkins came in, and Virgil played. And
Chris is on it also.
Yeah, Chris sang on it as Jimmy Messina played.
That's right.
And Tim sang. David Cassidy, my friend.
How'd you hook up with him?
I've known David for a long time. He's a really sweet guy, and he just was down at the studio. He's become real good friends with Tim, and he's a real sweet guy. I just really like him a lot, and he came in and sang on the album too. But getting back to the middle section, Virgil and Al and Rusty, I think, did a superb job of playing some pretty nice guitar in the middle of Stand Your Guard.
Right. Well, again, Richie, best of luck.
Thank you, Thomas.
And maybe the next time you come by, you'll, if you can, bring by Stephen or Neil or somebody, because having you here is like, I think, as close as we'll ever get. I said it's a fantasy. I like to get Stephen to come up. I've met him a couple of times, but we just couldn't find our way up here. Mm-hmm. And Neil doesn't like to talk on the radio, and I told him I don't either. So he said, fine, we won't. So having you here is really a pleasure.
Well, I thank you for having me over. It's been my pleasure to be here. It's been real fun talking to you.
That's great. Good luck. Richie Furay, he'll be down at the Cellar Door tonight. And will you be back in the future?
I think we're gonna try and get back here in the next couple months. I really just believe in this record. I want to support it, and we're gonna try and see it through. So this is our first little stop, and we're gonna go back out west and maybe just work our way back over to the East Coast again.
Mm-hmm. And again, I like to say, as far as any identity crisis, I don't think, what can we tell her? We'll think of something. I mean, I think she got the message some way. This will be edited, don't worry.
Okay.
But we got to tell her something. Before you split, would you do some IDs for the station?
I'd love to.
Because I wrote them out.
Great.
Got them in my pocket. Rocket in them.
Ridiculous, radio is so tight. There's too much good music to have it limited to just 15 artists.
I know. That's why 6 years ago when I came here, I've never left. Never had the desire to work at another radio station and play an A or B again, because this is where it's at. I mean,
great.
It's like Geno's, freedom of choice.
There you go.
If you can dig that. Anytime you're ready, if you do those.
Hello, this is Richie Furay, and whenever I'm in Washington, D.C., I listen to WHFS, Bethesda, Maryland. Hi, this is Richie Furay, and you're listening to Thomas on WHFS, Bethesda, Maryland, 102.3 on the FM dial.
Now, if you do the bottom one, and say David, you're listening to David.
Hi, this is Richie Furay, and you're listening to David on WHFS, Bethesda, Maryland, 102.3 on your FM dial.
And if you do one for Larry, he's the morning man.
Okay. Hi, this is Richie Furay, and you're listening to Larry on WHFS. Whoops. Let's go back and get him again.
Got plenty of tape.
Hi, this is Richie Furay, and you're listening to David on WHFS, Bethesda, Maryland.
That's great. Larry. You got to do Larry.
Okay. Hi, this is Richie Furay, and you're listening to Larry on WHFS, Bethesda, Maryland.
That's fine, Richie.
Fantastic.
So, I should ask you this real quick before the tape runs out.
All right.
You guys have been out on the road for how long now?
We've been out about 3 weeks playing time. We rehearsed 2 weeks at my house early in March. Went right downtown and played at a little club called the Blue Note to test it out. It turned out fantastic. The guys went home for a week and a half, came back, and we started on tour. So we've been playing together a little over a month. And I'm telling you, there's a charge there. There's a charge.
You feel the energy.
I feel the energy. It's the first time I've really wanted to play since I left Poco. I really just didn't. Too many things were going on with that SHF, and with the band part of my solo career, the I've Got a Reason band, we just never hit that niche. We rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed, and we just couldn't sing and play together. It's like what I think this person missed. It takes a knack, and you have to find the right ingredients, to sing and play together. And this band just got it now.
That's what I was trying to tell you earlier. When the first album came out, the first Richie Furay band album with I Got a Reason, you were scheduled to play in 76, the Richie Furay group or band, and you guys never showed up. The concert was canceled. Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
But I think you were billed with Southside Johnny, so it would have been a weird mixture,
bill.
Really.
What possibly could have happened was that we just really were sensitive to the fact that maybe that was not the album to really build that foundation on. The group just wasn't, we just didn't get it nailed down, and it was a struggle. It was hard, and it was work, and it shouldn't be work. And that's what I really feel that my new band is. It's fun. It's enjoyable. We're all having a good time. Tell you, we're getting right back down to the basic roots. We're driving in a van. We're not flying. We're working in clubs as a Cellar Door, although they are most of them are bigger than the Cellar Door, the Bottom Lines and the Roxy's and the Bogarts in Cincinnati and places like that. And what it's doing is it's giving us the opportunity to really hear each other and know exactly what everybody's doing. Since we haven't been together that long, it's really an invaluable thing for us. It's also giving me a chance to be able to relate to an audience, open up to an audience more so than just a whole big row of people out there. And when we do maybe start playing colleges or playing in bigger venues, I'll try and still keep that intimacy that I remember from these clubs, because I haven't played clubs since early Poco.
Mm-hmm. I see. Well, I know you're going to have a tremendous amount of success, because it just seems that success follows you.
Well,
you can look back.
I feel real good about what I'm doing right now.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to hear it. Thanks again, Richie.
Thomas, it's been my pleasure. I've really enjoyed this.
It's been great meeting you.
Great.
Really.
Thank you.
And I hope you do come back when you...
I will.
What you should do sometime is come up at night when I'm on the air.
That would be neat.
And you can spin some records.
All
we
right.
have quite a library out there to choose from. And just pick out
That
whatever
sounds
you
neat.
want.
I'll take you up on
You
that.
get through Washington. You do that, okay?
All righty.
Okay, and again, we urge everyone to go down to the Cellar Door tonight for a real fine show with Richie Furay. Is Steve Young playing with you?
He didn't
up?
show up last night. I don't know if he's going to show up tonight or not.
Well, people should go down and find out.
Really?
Keep them in suspense.
We'll have some suspense here.
Exactly. Okay. Thanks a lot. Oh, this is terrific.